here today, very happy to be here again, once again with Alex Hunter, although we were going to do it in person, but for various reasons, we're doing it virtually today. But how are you, sir?
I'm very, very well. The sun is shining. That's all we can ask for these days.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. So listen, let me kick off. Kind of your award-winning show, Attaché, the travel program. How's it been? Tell us how you acted over the last couple of years and what you've been doing with it.
Well, it's been very weird. I mean, we have to travel to film the episodes, or at least so I thought. The series is guides to cities to help people unlock them on their own terms, how to get around, what to eat, etiquette, things like that. And then obviously COVID, travel restrictions happened. So I just put the show on hiatus for a while and just, tried to be okay with everything on a personal level. But then I realized there was a lot more to travel than just going to these places. There was all of these pilots and flight attendants and airport workers who had no jobs. So what is their life like? All of these restaurants that no longer had footfall anymore, that pivoted to doing meals for the NHS. Well, there's a wonderful story. Let's go and talk to them. Let's hear what they did, why they did it, how they did it, and how they think their restaurant is going to be different between before and after COVID. So when we were no longer able to travel, we had to look in our periphery for these stories. And we were very fortunate that there was beautiful stories to be told all around us. So that's really what we did. And now that we've come back and are able to film again and travel and film, we do it with a very different angle and perspective of the people are the most important components of these cities for us. They're what bring it to life, and so many of them have been decimated by COVID. So there's a story. It's not something we want to dwell on because it's not always fun to talk about. They are not defined by COVID, but they have been scarred, and I don't think it would be right to ignore that. So it's been an interesting journey over the last couple of years to try and continue to tell stories that inspire and motivate people.
But what's interesting for me in terms of what you've just said is, from my perspective, everything you've ever done, every time I've heard you speak, it has always been people focused. And it's about whether it's your customers, kind of your team, whatever it was. Did you lose sight very strong, but did you kind of go off in a different direction with Attaché, and actually almost the pandemic brought you back to what your core kind of understanding was?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great observation. We became quite formulaic, which our audience actually rather liked, but I found myself getting a little bit of fatigue with the format. So this forced us to abandon that completely and go back to why I wanted to do it in the first place, which is what is beneath the veneer of a city. And it's the people, and food is a big thing, and food connects all of us. So it was always very food centric, but it also travel changed completely and customer experience changed completely over the last 2 years. And so for me, being able to look at it with both of my hats on, both as travel content creator and as customer experience expert, travel was a great platform to observe both of those things in harmony, and changing and evolving very, very quickly. I did travel a lot when regulations allowed during COVID, and documented it with both of those hats on. So it was very interesting, almost academically, to observe this very quickly changing landscape that had sat on its bum for 20 years, really.
So let me ask you to kind of, I think one of the interesting things for me is loyalty, the customer, no longer customer experience, but customer loyalty in this digital age. And I also think kind of it's relevant as we talk about kind of internal teams and the loyalty of building up your team where everyone's virtual. Give us some of your insights or highlights about what we should be doing in terms of how we engage differently digitally to a physical in person.
Oh, sure. I think the silver lining of COVID and lockdown is that it has forced people to have this conversation, organizations to finally do the projects they'd been kicking down the curb for years, if not decades. This whole idea of digital transformation, which is a nice thing to do. It feels like something on a checkbox of corporate strategies talk, when really what we're doing is we are removing the barriers to our organization, so people internally and externally can connect with the people that can actually help them do what they need to do. And technology has been allowing us to do that for 10, 15, 20, 25 years, but it's expensive. And we just thought, man, it's probably not necessary. We can just keep doing what we've always done. Not anymore. 2020 threw that rule book completely out the window. And you could hear pin drops in boardrooms all over the world going, what do we do? And what do we say?
Yeah.
Because all of these companies put up the same ad saying the same, we're all in this together. It's going to be fine, blah, blah, blah. When really we're not all in it together. And when we couldn't leave our homes and we couldn't see our loved ones, we craved human connection more than ever, even if it was somebody answering a tweet or picking up the phone. The companies that really figured this out were the ones that pushed customer experience onto digital, allowed the customer to make changes to their reservation, check in, pick a seat, unlock their hotel room door. We became very afraid of people for a while, which was a very strange position as a species to be in. We didn't want to interact with each other face to face. In many cases, we were not allowed to. But how do we replicate that sense of human to human? And I think that's what was reinforced during all of this, is a potent reminder that behind every click and every call is a human being, not a user, not a customer, but a human that needs that sense of reassurance and the ability to get things done. So it was that sense of bringing everything to the customer, allowing them to do that without having to go to a shop or sit on hold for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. But then on the balance of that consistency of delivery, of experience, of doing what you have always done was incredibly reassuring to a lot of us. When the world stopped turning, Amazon kept delivering. That never changed. The logistics behind the scenes to make that happen was like nothing we'd ever seen before. But from our perspective as customers, nothing really changed. They hired 150,000 people in the UK alone to make that happen. Apple kept releasing products. They kept doing their keynotes. How they did them was completely different. They switched to virtual, just like we all did. And it was great. And it worked. You could still go and get a service, albeit you did it through a drive-through with a mask on in a parking lot, as opposed to in an Apple store. So they did what they always have done. How they did it was completely different, but that experience to us was consistent and very, very reassuring. So the balance of those two things, I think those companies that quickly figured this out, didn't panic, were the ones that shone in this otherwise dark period.
Can I ask? I mean, I found that fascinating, especially with the second part, because you don't really think about the likes of Amazon and Apple, and actually the fact they kept on delivering. But with the first part, and it's something that I do think about a lot. Were we always going to get there? And actually, all the pandemic has done is sped us up as a society, or actually now looking in hindsight, and obviously hindsight's a wonderful thing, but from your perspective, did actually society need to be shaken up, even though we would never wish to have what we had, but in order for us to really understand what customer experience digitally actually means?
When there is monumental change to customer experience at its most fundamental level, invariably it is something that the customer has forced. It's not something that business has decided to do. And I think that was amplified exponentially during COVID. So, you look at the customers changed expectation because of smartphones. We have them available on us 24 hours a day. So the expectation, and this is way before COVID, is that the companies are available to us 24 hours a day. I mean, in the olden days, you would have companies putting their opening hours on Twitter.
Yes.
That sounds insane these days, but that was the norm. And because we all exist on multiple platforms, we expect these companies to exist on multiple platforms. And to make it even more complicated for business, we as consumers expect to be able to switch up the platforms halfway through the conversation. So start a purchase on a website and then go into the shop and complete the purchase, or start a customer support request on Twitter and then call up the call center and complete that. And God help you if you ask me for information I've already given you on another platform. I can assure you that business did not do that of their own volition.
Absolutely.
We as a consuming public forced that change. And it's a good thing. It's an important and necessary thing. The power in that relationship between consumer and brand has shifted massively back to the consumer in the last 5 years. And that is a hugely important thing.
Listen, I'm conscious of your time, Alex. One last question. What's next for you? What's going on?
Well, it's going to be great to get back on stage in front of people. It's something I absolutely love doing. But this setup, these are great where we can have these impromptu conversations where the friction is removed almost completely. So I'm looking forward to doing these and being on stage. I'm looking forward to discovering new cities, new platforms. I'm writing a book at the moment about travel and customer experience and the marriage thereof. So I like to keep myself busy.
Good stuff. Alex Hunter, thank you so much indeed for your time. Lovely speaking as always.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.